Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're diving into a seriously fascinating technical journey from Oldcastle APG. If you don't know them, they're one of the largest suppliers of construction materials in North America. We're talking asphalt, concrete, and massive paving services spanning over 150 facilities. Now, they recently modernized. They moved from an old on-premises system to an Infor Cloud Enterprise Resource Planning System, or ERP, hosted on AWS. But, and here's the catch, in doing so they hit a massive roadblock: latency. Without meaning to, they actually lost their real-time operational reporting. So today, we're going to look exactly at how they solved this huge data latency challenge using a cutting-edge AWS streaming architecture. It's basically a blueprint any enterprise can learn from.
Okay, let's dive into this. We've got a 5-step data journey blueprint today, starting with the Cloud ERP dilemma, then unlocking real-time data, mapping out the AWS streaming architecture, seeing embedded analytics in action, and finally, looking at the actual business impact.
Step 1. The Cloud ERP dilemma and losing that real-time visibility. This is a trap so many organizations fall into when they modernize. Oldcastle APG successfully moved to a modern cloud environment, which is great, right? But their out-of-the-box, configuration-based reporting in Infor Cloud ERP only covered a fraction of what they actually needed operationally. And this quote right here really highlights the pain they felt. I mean, picture this. You're running a massive, continent-wide manufacturing and logistics operation, but you're forced to rely on delayed batch reports. Your data is literally just a snapshot of the past. Waiting around for these batch reports ate up valuable time, totally stopped managers from jumping on real-time insights, and just bogged down critical decision-making.
When you contrast their old and new realities, the friction is just incredibly obvious. Their old on-premises setup gave them hundreds of complex real-time reports, but, well, it was stuck on aging legacy infrastructure. Their new reality? A brilliant, modern cloud ERP, but heavily constrained by batch-delayed reporting. Think about batch processing like trying to move water with a bunch of buckets. You only get the water when the bucket finally arrives. What Oldcastle desperately needed was a pipeline, a continuous real-time flow of data.
So, that brings us to the big question. How exactly do you restore that absolutely crucial real-time visibility without just abandoning your shiny new cloud ERP? How do we actually get the best of both worlds here?
Moving right along to step 2, unlocking real-time data, the foundation. To break out of that batch reporting trap, they turn to a really foundational tool right at the point of data ingestion, Infor Data Fabric Stream Pipelines. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how this add-on feature works directly inside their ERP environment. Instead of waiting for data to be batched up and dumped into a data lake, Stream Pipelines grabs data events, literally every single insert, update, and delete operation completely timestamped, and streams them instantly. So the absolute second a sales order is modified or inventory changes, boom, the data's already moving.
Which takes us to step 3, the AWS streaming architecture and the actual data journey. Okay, so with the data flowing continuously, let's map out the spatial flow of how it actually moves into a secure AWS environment. We're looking at 5 macro steps here. First up, data ingestion through those stream pipelines we just talked about. Second is load distribution, to securely route all that traffic. Third, connection management, which handles the massive volume of these continuous streams. Fourth is our highly scalable data storage. And finally, step 5, the analytics and visualization layer. Let's actually track a piece of data right through the most technical parts of this pipeline. I really want to map this routing out clearly so we don't get lost in the weeds. Because the external ERP can't just reach into Oldcastle's private VPC directly. They set up a network load balancer using static elastic IPs. Think of this as a super secure, totally predictable front door. That load balancer then forwards traffic to RDS routers running on EC2, which use IP tables not rules to essentially escort the traffic safely right into the private subnet. It is a brilliant security measure, honestly, making sure that even if a database IP changes during a failover, those static entry points remain perfectly consistent.
Once that traffic gets into the private subnet, it runs into the Amazon RDS proxy. You can think of this component as a really efficient traffic cop. Since we're dealing with high-frequency streaming data here, there are absolutely going to be massive data bursts. So RDS proxy steps in to pool and reuse connections, making sure the database doesn't get completely overwhelmed. Plus, it provides automatic failover capabilities to ensure those data streams quite literally never drop. Finally, all that streaming data finds its new home in Amazon Aurora PostgreSQL. Now, because streaming data can be super variable, they store it using JSON B columns. It's kind of like a totally flexible filing cabinet. This setup allows for incredibly elastic scaling. They can leverage native JSON functions to parse and normalize specific fields right on the fly, all backed up by a multi-availability zone deployment for rock-solid high availability.
All right, step 4. Embedded analytics in action, focusing on the user experience. So, now that our raw data is safely stored and constantly updating in real time, it's got to get dressed up for the end user. So the crucial point is how you actually serve all this up instantly. Oldcastle uses Amazon QuickSight for this, which is powered by SPICE. SPICE stands for Superfast Parallel In-Memory Calculation Engine. By caching aggregated or frequently used data right in SPICE, QuickSight guarantees sub-second response times, no matter how ridiculously complex those dashboards get.
But what makes this truly elegant, I mean, it's almost like magic for the end user, is how completely invisible the experience is. Users never actually log into AWS. Here's how it works. Amazon API Gateway generates these dynamic time-limited URLs. In the background, AWS Lambda functions map the user's Infor roles directly to QuickSight permissions, enforcing strict role-level security. And then, the whole dashboard is embedded right inside the Infor OS using iframes. So the user just logs into their everyday ERP like normal, and boom, the real-time AWS-powered dashboards are right there waiting for them.
Let's bring it home with step 5, the business impact and faster decisions.
Because, let's be real, all of this highly technical architecture is only valuable if it drives actual, measurable business results. And the results here are pretty staggering, 50+. That represents the massive scale of complex dashboards and pixel-perfect reports that Oldcastle deployed for the business.
And we are not talking about simple bar charts here. These are serious, multi-dimensional analysis tools deployed across customer service, finance, logistics, and manufacturing. And get this, they built this entire end-to-end architecture in just 8 months. By leveraging ND-JSON format for real-time streaming, they effectively killed the era of waiting for batch data. Managers are making immediate data-driven decisions now, all while enjoying a seamless single sign-on experience that literally keeps them in one unified system.
And this brilliantly illustrates our final metric, 100+.
That represents the number of concurrent users seamlessly interacting with these complex dashboards at any given moment. This system flawlessly handles an incredible volume, processing millions of real-time transactions every single day without a single drop in performance. The read replicas just automatically scale up based on demand, which basically proves this architecture isn't just a band-aid fix for today, it is totally future-proof.
Oldcastle APG proved that migrating to a cloud ERP absolutely doesn't mean you have to sacrifice real-time visibility. By bridging their ERP with AWS streaming and analytics, they completely transformed their operational agility. So I want to leave you with a question to consider about your own systems. Is your cloud ERP holding your data back in slow batch processing buckets, or is it driving it forward through a real-time pipeline? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep on learning.